JoJo, welcome back to Mea Culpa. Great to see you, my friend. So much to talk about. As you know, the hour goes by way too quick. Look, when we do our Substacks, they go even faster. So I got to jump right into it. I want to just bring up as an example, Cracker Barrel, right? Cracker Barrel capitulated and reverted its logo earlier this week, simply after Trump publicly criticized it. JoJo, what does it say about the power of presidential intimidation over corporate America? And how long before other companies end up following suit?
Well, I will say that on this one, Michael, I don't know that it was squarely in his lap that this reversal happened, or that it's all of his credit, because I even agreed that it was bad. It was a bad rebrand. And I think like everybody across the political spectrum was like, what are you doing? Like, I don't care that much. I don't go to Cracker Barrel. I don't think I've been to one more than once in my life. And I think I was like, I don't even know, in my 30s. But I will say to that end, he has a lot of outsized influence on lots of things that he shouldn't. But because, you know, he politics has infected all of society now, this is where we are. And I'm just waiting for like Aunt Jemima to come back. You know what I mean? Like,
well, they've already, by the way, Aunt Jemima, they've already gotten rid of. The same with Uncle Ben's. That's been several years now because of claims that it promotes racism and so on. But go ahead, you were saying?
Well, he's not gotten the Washington team, the Washington football team to what are they? The Commanders? Is that what they're called now?
They're the Commanders.
Changed back to the Redskins. But I mean, on this one Cracker Barrel thing, it really was a stupid rebrand. And I was watching like somebody sort of describing why so many of these chains are doing that. And it's so that the owners actually of the land that the franchise sits on can sell that building for somebody else to repurpose it. So it doesn't have any like distinguishable roofs or shapes or signs that they have to whatever. But yeah, I mean, in terms of your real question though, he's got a lot of influence, but his influence on institutions and law firms, colleges, that's the stuff that scares me, particularly as it pertains to universities and what he's doing there. You know, now he's got Harvard. He's trying to extort $500 million from them. So, I mean, that's the stuff that really scares me.
Well, we're going to get into that. But, you know, there's many reports out there that suggest that Trump demanded 10% of Intel, which basically has some intelligence contracts. A big portion of Intel's income is derived from federal contracts. How does this alleged cut, I don't even know how to describe it, sort of redefine corruption in terms of a political corruption? And what does it say about the erosion of trust in these operations? You know, I'm so confused. I've asked this question to several different people. Intel, which is a computer chip manufacturing company, they do what's called CPUs. I'm trying to figure out, as a publicly traded company, how can you give away 10% of the stock? If I am a shareholder of Intel, did you not just devalue my stock by giving away? Did they create some sort of a D-stock classification? I don't know how they did it. And more importantly, Trump makes the claim that he now put $11 billion into the U.S. government by taking the 10% of Intel. Where did that money go?
I wish I knew the answers to these questions too. And now I don't know if you heard yesterday during the Dear Leader North Korean cabinet meeting, but they're talking about Lockheed Martin now. They're talking about defense contracts next. I don't know, Michael. I don't know where any of this money is going. It's very, very bizarre that we don't have any true accountability here for millions, billions, trillions of dollars. I mean, We are now getting to a point that jobs numbers are going to be coming out again. We're now getting to a point where I don't trust that they're necessarily going to tell us the truth about any of this. I don't know that this money is going to the American people. I don't know what the tariff shelf is. If somebody wants to explain that to me, I don't know. I don't trust anything that's going on here. Because I also know, we talked about this the other day. You said I undervalued the profits that they've made, but that the Trump family has made up to $9 billion since the second season of the shit show started. That's crazy to me. So I don't know where this money's going. I don't know how they're getting away with it, but I know that it's this, they're telling the American people one thing and they're likely doing another.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up this whole thing about the tariff shelf, because
what is
it has now flown over into other companies. For example, DHL will not carry products from, for example, the UK to the United States. Why, you may be asking, my JoJo? I'm going to tell you. Because they don't know what the tariff rate is. They don't know how to collect it, and they don't know who to send it to. So if you're going to be touting how tariffs is the panacea to our, bloated debt that we're already taking in trillions and trillions of dollars, how are you taking it in if a company like DHL doesn't even know how to collect what rate and to who to send it to? Who is sending money to someone when there is actually no written policy other than a letter to, I don't know, let's say, dear leader of Kazakhstan, right? Or dear leader of Mexico, your tariff rate is 15%. How do you collect it?
Yeah. Well, right. Exactly. And what are we doing? Like, aren't Republicans the ones who scream about socialism all the time and free markets? And what are we doing having the federal government putting their thumb on the scale in favor of one company versus another? You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
And having a stake in one company versus another, having a say in what a private company does or doesn't do. Like, that's the kind of stuff where, I've seen Tom Tillis and some other Republicans, Tom Tillis, who's on his way out. So this is not exactly profiles encouraged, but, where are Republicans on this? Because doesn't this fly in the face of everything that they've ever said about government involvement in private industry? Isn't this what China does? Isn't this what Russia does? And now we're doing it here? Where are Republicans on this?
Well, it's definitely what Russia does. A little bit different, as I explained in the example the other day when we were doing our Substack. In the year 2000, all the companies in Russia were owned and controlled, because it was communist, by Russia. What they did is they sold off what's called privatization certificates, but the government, in order to have an income, kept 25%. Essentially, it's Vladimir Putin kept 25% of every company. This is different. We're a democracy. We've always been a democracy, a democratic republic. And now to go to these private companies, Intel, Lockheed Martin, and others, and say, yeah, you know what? Fuck you. We want 10% of your company. Otherwise, what are we going to do? We're going to cut off your government contracts? How do you cut off Lockheed Martin, who's the producer of all of our aircrafts, as an example? How do you cut off Intel? Where are you going to buy your CPU units for all of the computers that are running our government? You can't. So while it is an idle threat, companies like Intel just capitulated. But they're not the only ones, JoJo. Law firms, networks, ABC, CBS, suddenly are changing their tune, changing their messaging to align with this administration.
Mm-hmm.
JoJo, how unprecedented is this? And what pressures are at play, in your opinion, behind these closed-door meetings?
It's completely unprecedented in terms of the executive branch of the United States trying to insert themselves into private industry and also, the news media in particular. When the law firms capitulated, that was shocking to me, because we have seen that the courts anyway have been one of the only bulwarks left. But universities capitulating has been a surprise to me. But ABC and CBS capitulating in a way that they've done should scare all of us, because this is, a free press is one of the hallmarks of a democracy, of a democratic republic, whatever you want to say. Without a free press, we are basically Russia and China and North Korea. And not only did he get ABC to capitulate with George Stephanopoulos, which basically was like the first, right? That was that set the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And you know him now. And once he's established that he can do something, that he can get somebody to bend to his will, it's off to the races. And so then CBS did it too, because they wanted this merger deal, and they fired Stephen Colbert. And now they're going to have an ombudsman who's going to oversee to make sure, much like the Smithsonian now, that their content aligns with American values, with Donald Trump's values and his vision for America. And that should scare us all, because what does that look like? That looks like state TV, and that's frightening. And he's trying to extort UCLA right now for $1 billion. And that's just retribution. Same with Harvard for $500 million. That's also retribution. And what he's saying is under the guise of battling anti-Semitism, when that's, again, just a ruse. It's a Trojan horse for which he can exact retribution. And where is that money going? Because to the question you asked earlier, where are all of these, extortion payoffs going? Where's the money from Brown? Where's the money from Columbia? Where's that money going? I would like to know. And I don't think we have a real paper trail.
Well, in some of the cases, like the ones with ABC and CBS, it's going to the presidential library, the future Trump presidential library, exclusive of certain amount, like a 1 million here, 1 million there, that went for legal fees. Basically, Trump didn't want to pay the lawyers like Alex Brito, didn't want to pay him from his own pocket. So he said, take $1 million for yourself from each of these. Why not? Right? Well, the whole thing is just wild. Meanwhile, if you want to talk about wild, because nothing has changed, federalization of DC police has now been met with resistance. As you said, maybe the courts are holding up. I don't think so. But there's reporting that the federalization of DC police has met resistance from both judges as well as jurors. Now, you see this as a rare pushback, or do you think it's just a temporary check on executive overreach?
I don't think it's a temporary check on executive overreach. I think it is the judiciary doing its job, right? I hope that continues to happen, because we need some guardrails here. And they are not certainly coming from the legislative branch. So the guardrails right now are coming from the judiciary, but they're also coming from some of the governors in blue states and a few red. But I think ultimately, that I was talking to Heather Cox Richardson yesterday, and she was talking about how on some surface level, a lot of this looks like, Trump winning and Trump is succeeding and his policies are popular. But when you dig a little bit deeper, I think a lot of Americans right now feel like he's gone too far on many, many things, which is why he's underwater on a lot of polls related to various topics. But I think that this federalization, in particular, as it relates to putting armed National Guard on our city streets. By the way, they just took over control of Union Station from Amtrak, which is, again, shocking. I think that by and large, the American people want there to be justice, and they want the courts to stand up and to put, guardrails and restrictions on how far he can go. So I think that it will continue. I hope that it continues. And I hope that they don't bow to political pressure, because we need them to hold firm. Nobody else is.
Yeah, I hate to say it. I believe it's a temporary check. I don't believe that they're going to be successful, just as we've watched, Trump use the appellate courts and then ultimately the Supreme Court to get what it is that he wants. In fact, my Substack that I had written, Can America Find Its Voice Again? I literally start out that Substack. Donald Trump is winning. Yes, you heard me correctly. Not in the conventional sense of legislative achievements or broad national approval, but in something far more consequential. He has redefined the presidency itself. What was once a role constrained by norms, laws, and checks and balances is now a personal empire. The office of the president has morphed into the office of Donald J. Trump. And nearly every institution in America, from law firms to media conglomerates to corner diners, is bending to his will. And I do truly believe it. We are seeing something that I never thought in my lifetime that we would see. Law firms turning around and offering $1 billion in free legal service. You're talking about the change. And by the way, I was watching Donnie Deutsch the other day on MSNBC, who's a branding expert. He said all they did is clean it up. The old Cracker Barrel sign looks old, with an old man sitting on a bench with a barrel. And so on the other one, it's just a cleaner, more modern, updated version. It's almost like what we do in real estate. You take an old building, you refurbish it, you put on a new surface, you enhance the elevator systems, the floors, etc., and you make it look modern. That's all that they were doing, but it bothered him. It bothered the administration. And so even a diner, right? Even a diner, which is what it is, capitulates.
Well, again, we're just sidebar on this whole Cracker Barrel thing. I think it's a little bit different with Cracker Barrel because their identity is intrinsically linked to that whole vibe, right? Like the porch was gone. The whole energy of the facade of the restaurant was gone. That down homey, Southern, whatever vibe that really separates them from other fast casual restaurants was gone. So I think that I understand what Deutsch is saying about a rebrand, cleaning up a building, et cetera. But when you're talking about something that for a lot of people, I mean, take it or leave it, it's not my reality. But for a lot of people, it is linked to their relationship with that restaurant. And if you don't have that, if you take that away, then there is no relationship with that restaurant. And from a marketing perspective, that's kind of not a great move, right? So why am I going to go to any other square restaurant with the same logo in a different color as everybody else? But I understand what you're saying about everybody capitulating. And to that end, I will say, again, maybe I'm a glass half full person, because what I look around and see is, while you're right, that is happening and has happened. And that is one of the things Kamala said that she didn't expect to happen so fast. I mean, Heather Cox Richardson will tell you otherwise. She did expect it to happen so fast. It's number one rule in On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder is not to do this, because he knew that this would happen, because this is how authoritarians take control. But that said, I think the American people, by and large, are looking around going, this is too far. I need someone to push back. I need somebody to fight back. And when the Texas Democrats fled the state and refused to allow the Texas Republicans to have the quorum that allowed them to rob their own constituents of their autonomy and their representation by redrawing their maps to give Donald Trump, in another perfect phone call, not 11,780 votes, but 5 congressional seats. And when the Texas Democrats did that, the American people, not all, but a lot of Democrats and independents, and even probably, I would guess, some Republicans, were like, that's some fight. That's some gumption. I like that. I like that they're standing up and identifying, calling out cheating. And when Gavin Newsom followed what they did and said, okay, Texas, you're going to try to rig the election in favor of Donald Trump. We're going to fight fire with fire. And if you're going to redistrict your maps, we're going to redistrict our maps. And not only that, I'm going to start holding a mirror to you on social media and making fun of you, mocking you by doing what you do. And you're not going to know how to react to that. You're not going to know how to respond to that. But the biggest impact of all that is that a lot of people have been really fired up about this. And it's given a whole new fire to this fight. And the reason I think that is the case is because People are tired of the capitulation. People are tired of industries, law firms, in universities rolling over, businesses flocking to his side to hand him trinkets and emoluments clause violations. I think that by and large, people are getting really sick of it because this doesn't feel like us. It feels like weakness. It feels like cowardice. It feels like surrender. And I am, you could criticize me, I'm sure, all day long for being a bit naive, maybe. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's in our DNA as Americans to surrender.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I agree. It's not in our DNA, which is what I'm always writing about and I'm always talking about, because what he has done is figured out the sidestep. He doesn't follow any rules. He writes the rules. And when the rules that he wrote don't work for him, he rewrites them again and changes them. So yeah, initially there was all this great fanfare about the Democrats fleeing Texas and running off to go stay at J.B. Pritzker's hotel or someplace else. And they're not coming back until, after September, if at all, until they resolve this issue of the gerrymandering. Wow. 2 weeks. The famous Trump 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, they all start showing back up. Why? Because Governor Abbott forced them to come back. And they come back, and what happens? The vote is cast, and the gerrymandering map is going through. So at the end of the day, when I say that Trump is winning, I want to believe that Americans care about our democratic republic. I want to believe it. I'm just finding it incredibly difficult when they may say it, but they do nothing to help enforce it. If you're someone who values choice in your money, your goals, and your future, then you already know how broken traditional healthcare feels. One-size-fits-all treatments, preset dosages, zero flexibility. It's like being handed a contract you never agreed to. And trust me, I've signed enough bad deals to know how that feels. But now there's another way with hims and hers. So here's the truth. For years, I lived in a world where I didn't get to make my own choices. Every move dictated, every decision made. And let me tell you, when you finally get your control back, you never want to give it up again. That's what Hims and Hers delivers. Control over your health, your goals, and your life. They're reimagining healthcare with you in mind. Personalized care for weight loss, for hair loss, for sexual health, mental health, because no two people are the same. And pretending they are, just a lie. And I respect this. No membership fees, no surprise bills, no hidden agenda, just transparent pricing and real care you can access from anywhere. It's healthcare that finally puts you, not some faceless system, in charge. So here's the move. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Cohen. That's HIMS.com/Cohen. It's not available everywhere. Prescription products require provider consultation. See the website for full details. Important safety information and restrictions apply. You see, I constantly say that 2026 is not a referendum on Donald Trump. It's not. It's a referendum on Trumpism. And each and every one of these Republicans, and some Democrats as well, who are not acting in a way that benefits their constituents, the districts that they are there to serve, or the state that they are there to serve. The people of that state, the people of those districts should turn around and say, fuck you. You've been in way too long anyway, right? Stop with the lectures. We don't want to be lectured. We don't want dissertations. We don't want pie graphs and charts. We want action. Something we're seeing coming out of this Trump administration. You may not like what they're doing. I certainly don't like the bulk of their policies, but they're acting and they're doing something, whether it's their claims on crime or immigration or fentanyl. They're doing something. I don't want to be preached to. I remember sitting, as I'm sure you do, in college or law school, in auditoriums, and having the professor lecture you for 2 hours. You took your notes, you got your exam, you regurgitated back the important parts, and you got your grade. I don't want that anymore. I want somebody that's going to fight, like what Newsom is doing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. So do I, Michael. Amen to that. That's 100% what I not only want, it's what I try to do as, just a regular citizen with a platform, is I try to model, you got to meet the fight where the fight is. I'm tired of strongly worded memos about avocados from Mexico when, they're taking a freaking blowtorch to the Constitution. And action speaks louder than words. And you can talk all you want. You can stand up and literally talk for hours and hours and make history talking for hours and hours. And that's great. But at the end of the day, push comes to shove, you have to do something. You have to take action. And again, that's why what Newsom is doing is so different and is so welcome, because he is saying, okay, you want to play? Let's play. You want to change the rules, and you think that I'm not going to turn around and play with the new game that's on the table? Game on, literally. And that is what we need. And I just want to, just one thing about the Texas Democrats. One of the reasons they had to come back was because the Republicans, who don't care about their constituents at all, were not voting on aid for the families who were impacted by the floods there, families who lost their children. And they were holding up votes on things like that until those Texas Democrats came back and had to do what they had to do to make sure that these constituents were taken care of. But also they knew by the time they came back that Gavin Newsom had said, okay, Texas, we've got a trigger deal here. If you pull the trigger on these new maps, then we're going to have a special election in November. And the difference also with Gavin Newsom is he's saying, I'm going to hand this control, this power, this question to the people of California. They get to decide if they want to redraw these maps to fight fire with fire or not. That's not what they did in Texas. What they did in Texas was the politicians decided who their voters were, not the other way around. And we need to keep fighting. Pritzker, Hochul, Westmore, they are all starting to stand up. It's the governors. It's the governors more than it is anybody in Congress that right now are standing up and saying, all right, let's go. And I'm here for all of that. I will welcome all of that. Please inject that into my veins.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to just
go ahead.
Touch on one thing you said. And if Republicans actually gave a shit about crime or fentanyl, they would do something about guns, because they don't give a shit about doing anything about guns. While you and I were talking, a news thing came across my screen about a shooting, a lockdown situation at a Catholic school somewhere. I'm not sure where, but if you want to stop fentanyl, stop arming the Mexican cartels with American guns, because that's what they're doing. But nobody talks about that. If you want to stop crime, it's not necessarily an issue of putting more police on the streets, but how about if we get some of those guns off the streets? And not to mention, if you really want to impact crime, the thing you don't do is cut the social safety net. The thing you don't do is force birth. The thing you don't do is defund public education. So Republicans are pissing down people's backs and telling them it's raining when they're talking about crime and fentanyl, when they're not doing anything to stop either one.
Yeah. And by the way, the shooting is taking place right now at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis. So, I refuse to do these thoughts and prayers and so on. I'm with you. There is such a lack of gun legislation in this country. Legitimate. By the way, I was a guy that used to carry in the city of New York. I was one of 1,000 people licensed to carry a concealed firearm in New York City. I used to carry two, one in my ankle, one in my hip, until my federal conviction. Imagine, I went through hell to get that license. Today, you turn 18, you walk in with your driver's license, you walk out with an AR-15. You want an AR-15 for free and $50,000? Mm-hmm. Join ICE. You're 18 years old. Join ICE. You got it. Meanwhile, I want to talk about something for a second here that's been also on my mind, because it affects me as well. So now Trump and this administration have repeatedly claimed that both Chicago and New York City are next in line for federal intervention, for the federalization of our police forces. JoJo, you see this as idle threat making, or do you see it, as I do, as a blueprint for coercion against major urban centers, especially ones that are Democratic controlled?
Yeah, I mean, 1,000%, by the way, also taking a page straight out of a fascist playbook. This is what he's doing. And it's not even that he's just putting military and National Guard on our streets in DC, California as well. He's arming them, and it is just so that he can say, I want you to bend to my will. I want you to be afraid of me. I want you to see that I can come in and put, troops on your streets. I can take over the flow of life in your cities. And it is just him flexing things that he was not able to do in the first season of this shit show because he had some adults left in the room who said, no, you can't do that. They're all gone. But I've been to Union Station probably in the last 3 years. I've probably been there 20 times in DC. I love to take the train. The drive drives me crazy because you can hit that traffic and I don't want to fly because it's just a hassle. The train was a downright civilized, wonderful experience. I loved it. And I have never, ever, not one time been to Union Station and thought to myself, oh boy, this is dangerous. This feels like Baghdad. No, not once. In fact, one time, Michael, they have a pop-up bar, a cocktail lounge that is in there like 2 days a week. And one time my train was delayed or something. I had a little extra time to kill. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll have a martini while I'm waiting. In the middle of,
Shocker. I'm shocked.
Shock. Yeah. So that and they're gaslighting the American people by telling them, they did this during COVID too, where they were saying like, it's a hellscape. New York City is a crime-ridden hellscape. And you live there. I go there. It's an hour away from my house. I'm in the city all the time with my kids. I'm in DC with my kids. We walked from, where was it? We walked from Old Ebbets. We walked past where the Caps and stuff play, whatever that's called. It's called the Capitol Center. I don't know what it's called now.
Yes, the Capitol Center.
We walked past the Capitol Center. I brought them down into one of the metro stations so they could see it because they're so cool and they're different from New York. We walked all the way to our hotel, which was on a totally different part of the city at night. And we never experienced any problems whatsoever. So it's all gaslighting. It's all bullshit. And so much so that he has threatened retribution against the mayor of DC if she doesn't start giving him crime statistics that match up with what he's saying about it being far safer than it ever was, and about how crime was at its highest, restaurants are at their busiest, and none of that is true. So all of this is authoritarian creep, overreach, and he wants these blue city mayors, blue state governors to bend the knee to capitulate. And I want really fast. Last thing, and I promise I'll stop. But when you were talking about how the industries and the law firms and the colleges, and the news channels, networks, how they've all kind of capitulated, something that's bothered me because he named it this week. Big Gretchen Whitmer, she went to the White House and gotten a lot of crap for it, right? Early on, because she needed that Air Force base. And she also needed the federal government to do something about the carp issue that's happening in the Great Lakes. And so she hugged him. She got in a lot of trouble on our side because she looked like she was capitulating, which you could argue either way whether or not she was. She got what she wanted. But I'll say that this too. She got what she wanted, and that came with a price tag, which it always does with Donald Trump, because now he's using her bending the knee as the standard. And if Pritzker doesn't do what she did and what he'll call on her to do again, he's not going to help the people of Illinois with the same issue that they're having with these carp. He's not going to help the people of one of the states he is supposed to be the president of unless their governor comes to him and begs him, which he also did during COVID. This is not normal. And this is the kind of stuff that needs to raise alarm bells for everyone.
But I will tell you that this shooting is actually going to be used now by Republicans to demonstrate what Trump wants to do, what he has done in Los Angeles, what he intends to do in Chicago, New York City, and other areas that are Democratic controlled. And I've watched as Folks like Caitlin Collins and others have tried to push back against Republicans making claims that all of the worst crime cities are controlled by Democrats, which of course is not true. But Minneapolis, where this shooting took place, it's known as a Democratic trifecta, meaning Democrats control the office of the governor, Tim Walz, the attorney general, as well as both chambers of the state legislature. So this, they're going to say, this blue state, this heavy blue twin state, is exactly the point that the president is making in order to demonstrate why the federalization of police needs to take place in these, we'll call it urban centers. And that, unfortunately, we'll just say is bad timing for Democrats, good timing for Trump and this administration.
I mean, depending on what kind of latitude you give them, because all you have to say, again, all you have to say in response to that, two statistics. First of all, like, you know, the highest murder rates in our country happen to be in cities that are in red states. I think we talked about this the other day, Memphis being one of them.
Yep.
I forget what the other one was.
Louisiana.
Yeah, Alabama, etc.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's that statistic. And there's also the fact that, again, you cannot have a mass shooting in any city and or state if you don't have weapons of mass destruction available for purchase, like you're getting a freaking coffee at Quick Check. It's the guns. I've long said this. It's the guns. And the worst, greatest argument, I hate saying greatest argument because it's disgusting, but the most profound and simplest argument for that is the fact that the Uvalde Police Department was armed to the teeth with tactical gear and shields and weapons that were formidable on their own. And they were so afraid of an AR-15 that they waited an hour in the hallway before engaging with it. That's a weapon no one needs. I don't want everyone to lose their guns. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe that we should have the ability to carry firearms responsibly, to store them responsibly, and that you should not be able to turn 18 and walk into a store and buy 2 AR-15s and 6,000 rounds of bullets. So if it's me, and this argument is made right now that Minneapolis is out of control and that crime is out of control there, and this is why you need a federalized police force, I would say, no, you don't need more guns. You need fewer guns. You need fewer guns that are capable of committing mass murder. You need fewer AR-15s, fewer automatic, semi-automatic weapons. That's the argument I would make, while they gaslight us into thinking that this shooting is somehow the fault of a Democratic governor. You're just taking the guns out of the equation. And to people who say guns don't commit crimes by themselves, guns don't commit mass shootings by themselves. Okay, great. You're going to do the same kind of carnage like happened in Las Vegas with what? A baseball bat? A knife? No, you're not. You need something that can liquefy a person. And that's the conversation that they're not having. And they're defunding these programs that have been making strides towards lowering the numbers of mass shootings and violent crimes. But I would argue if they try and use this as an opportunity to make an argument that places like Minneapolis are out of control and rife with crime, that the conversation should turn to the guns.
Yeah, actually, by the way, I think it's New Mexico that has the highest crime rate in the United States, by the way. Alaska, Louisiana, and Tennessee, I think, are the top 5. But look, it's not just the federalization of the police or the attacks on private corporations or law firms and so on. Trump is attacking even the Federal Reserve. Even the Federal Reserve, because he doesn't like that they are not listening to what he wants, including his most recent attempts to fire Lisa Cook. I find these acts to be alarming, knowing that the Federal Reserve is supposed to be an independent economic institution. These acts by him, they threaten the independence. And my big concern that nobody's really talking about is the long-term fallout for the markets.
Mm.
How many trillions of dollars are going to be lost if, in fact, you have a Federal Reserve that is under the control of the administration?
I mean, I'm not an economist. I don't understand all of the market stuff as well as a lot of people do. I would defer to much smarter people on that, but I do know how to read a chart. And when he tried to fire her, the dollar tanked. And, people like Gavin Newsom were saying, great job, more winning. And between that and his volatility on the tariffs and the retributive acts he's taking against countries when he feels like it on a whim, none of this is good for the American economy. I mean, that scares me. But the independence of the Fed is very interesting because even Hassett was on CNN this morning and he was asked about that. And he said, I believe that the Fed should be independent, that they have shown that any lack of independence in the Fed is inflationary. And the American people have shown that they really do not like inflation. Meanwhile, his boss is doing exactly what he is saying you shouldn't do to the Fed, where he wants the Fed to be a political arm of his administration. That's what this firing is. That's what his continued threats and dangling firing Powell are. He is trying to literally turn the Fed into the thing he's accusing the Fed of being, which is political. And just by the way, as an aside, they are accusing this Fed of being politically motivated against him. This Fed chair that he put in place was politically motivated against him and cooked numbers to hurt him politically. I mean, that is some 5D chess, but again, it's gaslighting. They want to politicize the thing that they say should be independent because it wasn't independent and it was politicized. That's what they do. Every accusation is a confession. He's on CNN saying it should be independent, then let it be independent. And by the way, they're going to court about this. And I'm not a lawyer or a legal expert, but from what I've understood, Trump doesn't have a lot of legal standing here, and she's probably going to be reinstated. Hassett was also asked if they're going to put up someone to replace her, nominate someone to replace her, and he didn't answer that question. He said he just tried to sort of skirt around it and said that Trump would abide by the court's decision. We all know how that goes.
But JoJo,
yeah.
JoJo, when I say that he is taking control over every single aspect of America, very much the way that he controlled every single aspect of the Trump organization, a whole group of FEMA employees, all of the FEMA employees signed this open letter criticizing Trump because right now we are heading into hurricane season where there's already a bunch of category, I think smaller ones, 2, 3, 4s that are beginning to brew.
Mm-hmm.
They criticized him for defunding FEMA and so on and so forth. Every single one of them were placed on leave. What does this say about loyalty versus competence in especially issues like emergency management, something that Americans, Republican, Democrat, Independent, rely upon so that we don't have to send thoughts and prayers again to another mass flooding that took place like in Texas?
It's Project 2025 in action, right? This was all about removing the career public servants who were not political in their jobs.
You ever stand in front of a mirror midsummer, wondering when your face started looking like a used gym towel and your energy vanished? I don't kind of like classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, been there. So let me save you from your next dumb cleanse or your crash diet. This is called Prolon, and it's the only 5-day fasting mimicking program that actually delivers. There's no starving. There's no shady powders. No praying to the kale gods. Just real plant-based meals, soups, snacks, teas, all designed to keep you in a fasting state while you're still eating. What it does, it tricks your body into burning fat, repairing cells, and basically turning back the clock without needing a time machine or Botox. And now there's Prolon Next Gen, 100% organic, better taste, and ready to eat. Developed by top scientists at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by legit research. I mean, it literally triggers autophagy, a Nobel Prize winning cellular cleanup process. So yeah, your cells go through a spa day while you sip soup. So look, when I need a reset, and I mean really need one, Prolon's the only thing that works. It's convenient, it's backed by science, and you know what? It doesn't make you hate life. So right now, Mea Culpa listeners, you're going to get 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to Prolon's 5-day nutrition program. So go right now to prolonlife.com/Mea Culpa. That's Prolon, PROLONLIFE.com/Mea Culpa to get your discount and your gift. Look good, feel better, and tell your metabolism to wake the hell up.
They were doing their jobs because that's what they signed up to do, to help the American people, in particular as it relates to FEMA, in crises, in catastrophes, in recovery, in the wake of massive flooding, in the wake of hurricanes, tornadoes, you name it. It should not be political. They should be allowed to do their jobs that are not political. And what happens, what we've already seen happen, which is what happened in part in Texas in the floods that claimed those campers so tragically, and many others, is that because they have reversed some of the post-Katrina changes, improvements that they made to FEMA, they've added more paperwork, more red tape, so that people were on these phone calls begging for assistance where they couldn't get anybody. Because what they've done to FEMA, not only in terms of this new, by the way, these new layoffs, is they've made everything have to go over $100,000, which is nothing in terms of this kind of federal response. It has to go directly through Kristi Noem. More red tape. What we learned in the wake of Katrina was you need to give them more autonomy so that they can make these decisions faster, so that the people on the ground can get the help that they need faster. But the people who were put on leave, related to this letter, were the ones who put their names on it. And some people signed it anonymously, but everyone who put their name on it was removed from their position. And what they have, many of them have said now, is I am upset and I am devastated by this, but I am not surprised, because this is the world that we live in. We lost the Bureau of Labor and Statistics head because her job numbers that were revised, because the revisions are the most accurate numbers we get, by the way. And I apologize for the leaf blower if you can hear that. I guess they're doing landscaping. I don't know if you can hear it. But if you are not loyal and you do not say what your leader wants you to say, if it doesn't reflect anything favorable about him. I mean, you watched the cabinet meeting yesterday.
Can we talk about that? I mean, that which is like a perfect segue to where I wanted to go next. These cabinet meetings, they now run 3 hours long, televised session from beginning to end of flattery and gratitude. This is nothing shy of a spectacle. So, JoJo, how does this spectacle impact the functioning of government versus the image that Trump wants projected?
Well, it certainly is a spectacle, and you know him. He cut his teeth, so to speak. The reason we all really know who he is, I mean, yeah, people knew who he was before The Apprentice, but was because Mark Burnett produced this spectacle of a show that was largely a facade, that made him look all powerful, that made him look like this real estate savant, that made him look like a business guru for the ages, right? And it was all lights, camera, action, don't look behind the curtain, because none of it was reflective of reality. It wasn't even a real boardroom. That's what this is too. He's the producer of more spectacle that fillets him, that makes him look more important as he physically, by the way, just as an aside, is literally shrinking into his chair. He can't even sit up straight. I saw him spitting yesterday. It's a spectacle, and it's a spectacle that the news media is feeding right friggin' into, because when's the last president ever you saw his entire cabinet meeting aired on TV or clips of it all day long everywhere? That he does this because he knows it makes for good TV, because it's going to trigger people on my side and it's going to please people on his side, because it's all part of the act. It's all the Wizard of Oz, or the Wizard of Ooze is what I call him now. President Dark Hands. But there is a practical impact here too. And this is the one that we should be talking about, instead necessarily of the sycophant parade, North Korean style, just display of utter disgusting, awful flattery. That some of these cabinet officials, many of these cabinet officials are doing things and implementing things, to appease him, to please him, to make him happy, to flatter him, to give him a shiny object, whether it's Tulsi Gabbard with this, Russia hoax, intelligence dump reveal, or whether it's Linda McMahon saying, yeah, we're going to go after Harvard, or whether it's, was Lee Zeldin in terms of what we're doing to our environmental protections, or Witkoff talking about taking over parts of Lockheed Martin. Like it's all.
No, that's Lutnick talking about
sorry.
Lockheed Martin. Yeah, Witkoff is talking about how, great we're doing in terms of our overseas negotiations.
Sorry, right. Yeah. Or Loeffler talking about how Donald Trump has always been for the American worker. No other president has ever been for the American worker. I can't remember the labor secretary, but she's talking about his friggin' flag, his face on the building, the Department of Labor building. Like that stuff is the actual stuff we should be talking about, because they're not just flattering him in its words. They're trying to flatter him with their actions. And those actions, like trying to whitewash the history in the Smithsonian, those actions actually are bad for America. And they're driven by appeasing a madman. That's the story. It's not the filleting display of just honestly feckless fawning that is just grotesque. It's what they're actually implementing that should worry us all.
So look, JoJo, the hour comes by, unfortunately, way too fast. Finally, my final question to you.
Yeah.
In the face of public intimidation, federal overreach, and the silencing of dissent, what concrete actions can citizens, employees, union people, police officers, institutions, everybody, what can they take to resist normalization of fear-driven loyalty?
Well, the number one thing is the easiest thing, which is conversation, which is use your own circle of influence. You have more influence with your friends, with your neighbors, with the people who you know in your community than anywhere else in the world. So start talking to those people. Start, maybe they don't know. Maybe they're not aware. Maybe they're wondering, why is this so expensive? And they don't know that it's because of his tariffs. Maybe it's that. Use your voice. That's one really definite thing you can do, immediate thing you can do right now, is utilize your network of influence and start having these conversations with people. You can also go to your own phone. All you need is a phone. If you have something to say, something that worries you, go to your own phone and either tweet it or post it or make a video of it. It doesn't matter. Just get it out there. I think that we often think, well, maybe I don't have a voice in this world. Maybe nobody cares what I have to say. And if I had thought that a few years ago, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. I had something to say. I was outraged and I wanted to say it. And I just put it out there. And lo and behold, eventually people were like, somebody's saying something that I want to say. And now I want to say it some more. So it's very simple things, but you could obviously donate. You can donate to the fight that's going on in California. They're going to need tons and tons of money to fight that fight for the special election to get those 5 seats congressional seats back from what they did in Texas.
See, I'm going to tell you, I don't agree with that they're going to need more money. I'll tell you what they need. They need JoJo to turn around, and they need folks like myself, Midas Touch Network, maybe the Mycellus brothers that are all there in California. And you need to go district by district. You need to go town by town. And you need JoJo because you are a known name. You need to go there and you need to grab Mary Jane's hand, John Doe's hand. And you need to say to them, are you experiencing additional money, expenses because of tariffs? Well, I'm not really sure whether or not it's tariffs. Well, let me walk you through why it is tariffs. They need people to hold their hand. You're not going to get educated from another ad. And if I get one more, I'm not joking, if I get one more ad or request from Ken Martin of the DNC for more money, send $3, $5 every freaking day. I haven't seen Ken Martin do shit. I think he's even worse than Jamie Harrison, and I didn't think that was even possible. They need people like you. They need your voice. They need known names, like known names, to go into these red and purple districts, because without it, these people are just either misinformed, disinformed, or malinformed of what's actually going on and how it affects their lives.
Yeah, they need someone who's walking the same existence they are to talk about it. That's the difference, right? Don't talk at me. Tell me something I'm feeling. You can't make me feel something I don't. And if you express what you're feeling in a way that's honest and genuine and truthful and real and raw, people understand it. So it's not just me. It's every American, again, who has an opportunity to tell their story and speak their truth. It's everybody out there.
Yep. So make sure that you join JoJo's Substack. Make sure you join my Substack. Mine is at The Real Michael Cohen. JoJo, yours is?
Are you effing kidding me? And I have a new media network called The Siren. And we have a new podcast called The Siren Podcast. Yesterday, I had Heather Cox Richardson, politics girl, who's Lee McGowan, Allison Gill, and Dana Goldberg on at the exact same time. We had Governor Newsom on our network last week. So I have two Substacks. One is my network, which is The Siren Network, and one is my Are You Effing Kidding Me? That is my baby. That's my personal Substack. So that's the one.
I'm waiting for my invite to Siren, but I'm sure.
I got a panel in mind.
We're waiting.
Michael, I have a whole, because the Siren Podcast is a panel show. So believe me, I have a panel in mind for you. Before you go, if you could pick your perfect panel, you get 3 other people. Who are you putting on that panel?
Scaramucci.
Okay.
Ben Mycellus.
Okay.
And Glenn Kirshner.
I got all 3 of them.
We can get George Conway.
I can get him.
Another one.
Who do you want, Scaramucci or George?
No, I would go with Scaramucci.
Okay, so he follows me, but we have never interacted, so I might need help.
I have his number. And JoJo, great. Well, we'll do this on our own. JoJo, you're the best. Thank you. Appreciate you. And yes, I do believe that we need to get our voices out there even further. So thank you for being a part of that.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to talk to you. Oh, and I hope you had a good birthday.
Thank you. Bye, JoJo.